This information is something that a lot of people find themselves in, 17, 18-year-olds trying to figure out, should I go for flight training right away or should I wait? I do have a comment that I want to bring up, and I just want to share what the person says in this video that I made. Hello, I'm from India and about to finish my high school. I have been thinking of joining aviation for a long time. Now the time has come, but I am confused if I should start my journey right after high school or should I go for a bachelor's first. But on the other hand, if I do my bachelor's, I may lose money and time, which I don't want to. What would you recommend to me? Also, is it open for international students as I am an Indian? Now, one thing I want to mention is a lot of you who watch this channel are also very knowledgeable about some of these programs. You probably have first-hand experience applying to the program. You have probably been through the selection process before. So I appreciate when some of you leave comments and answer these questions on my behalf, because again, like I said, some of you have experience in these programs. And Project X, I don't know if you'll be watching this video, but thank you for replying. And I read your response and I see that it totally makes sense. It's quite tough as an Indian to join career programs abroad, specifically or especially if you're not already based internationally. Also, you won't lose time when you do a bachelor's. You can become a pilot at any age, practically as long as you're physically fit. Money, however, will play a role, but you'll be spending tons even if you don't get a degree. A degree acts as a safety net, backing you up if the industry becomes volatile, like the pandemic. I've heard of a lot of regional airlines opening up in India. It's the fastest growing market in the world. So if you do a degree and wait for these airlines to set up, I'm sure you'll have a lot of opportunities, more than even ones you'd find abroad. But obviously, it's your choice. This is something that I believe that I would have also said. But of course, I'm not in India. I have not been into the Indian, aviation space for so long. So I don't have concrete advice as to how a region is developing. But one thing I know is that Asia, India region as well, and of course, even Africa are regions that are projected to develop and need more airplanes and grow. So the point is, for a potential job opportunity for pilots, I think there's a lot of future growth prospects in those areas. Now, to thank Project X, like I mentioned, the reason why I'm saying thank you is because a community like this, you're able to assist one another by providing valuable information. Sometimes maybe I'm working, maybe I'm not available, maybe I'm sleeping, right? And I don't respond to these comments, not because I didn't read them, but just maybe I just don't have the time to type a very detailed response. So most of the time, maybe I just say thank you, oh, best of luck, things like that. But when it comes to writing detailed responses, it does take time. And when I see people take the time to respond to comments like this, I appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you for doing that. Now, to answer your question that was asked, should you go for a bachelor's degree or should you go for your training right away? One thing I want to let you know is if you have the funds to train, I always encourage people to go for the training while you're young, while you have the ability to do so, and while you have the funds, because you just never know when things can change. When you take on the role of becoming a pilot and you start to work and make money at an airline, you can always complete your bachelor's degree online. You don't have to physically be in a school to complete your bachelor's degree anymore. However, in order to become a pilot, you need to be physically there. You need to train. In my own opinion, again, this is just based on what I've read about your situation. So I'm assuming that you have the funds. I'm assuming that you have the ability and the time to become a pilot. Why don't you apply to the schools, whether it's in India to train, whether it's in South Africa, whether it's in the US, Europe, wherever you feel comfortable training. Start your training, get that done, and then you can enroll into a program for bachelor's, maybe when you're instructing. Let me take you back on my own journey. When I came to the US, I already had my bachelor's degree. Now, the reason why I didn't start training right away after high school was because I didn't have the funds. I didn't have the means to get it done. When I started my degree in Nigeria, I already knew that I would probably go back into aviation, but I wasn't sure because, I was in IT doing computer science, and all of that led me to a point where I felt comfortable, because I like computers, I love IT as well, and I felt if I continued down that path, it's definitely great. But aviation was always my first, choice if I had the option. But because there were no funds to do it, I had to stick with IT. And when I completed it, at that time, we had the ability to start the training. I didn't have all the funds for training completely. I didn't have $90,000. I have to be clear, but at least I had something to get started. And that's what I also tell you guys, that sometimes you don't have to save $90,000 to get started. $90,000, $100,000, however, how much it's going to cost you. You don't have to save all that money to get started. But sometimes getting started is what you need for you to then see the prospects that are opening up. Maybe those programs, cadet programs, will open up for you, depending on where you're from, where you're training. Maybe you find scholarship programs as well. Now, what I did. Now, after I completed my training, I then enrolled in a master's program where I then studied further in aviation, did a degree in aviation. The reason why I share that with you is during my time while I was studying, doing my program, I was also instructing. So that means I was getting my hours and I was also completing my education. That is something that you can choose to do. Yes, yours is a bachelor's degree, but once you complete your flight training and you start to maybe instruct to get hours, that may be something for you to do while getting your hours, while instructing, while building your aviation career. And of course, you're working on your bachelor's degree. I felt that this is something that a lot of people need to understand. Your bachelor's degree is always there. You can always become a pilot at any time, just like Project X said. But one thing that you need to consider is that your ability to become a pilot is sometimes limited. And I had to say that a couple of times. Sometimes limited because, well, you may not have all the funds at once, or you may have all the funds at this time. You don't know if the funds will be there 2 years from now. You may be able to get a loan to train now, but you may not be able to get a loan 2 years from now. So your situation is always very dynamic in life. And if you have the opportunity to do the big thing, I would say seize it and get it done. On the other hand, with your bachelor's degree, you can do that at any time also. The difference is, in order to become a pilot, you don't necessarily need a bachelor's degree. You completing your degree and doing your pilot training are two separate things. And if you are able to get your pilot training done now, because you have the funds, you have the means, you have the ability, I'll get that done and then use the money that I earn while I'm working or maybe instructing to then fund a degree program, which is a good thing. I like the thing Project X mentioned here by saying that it's a safety net, which is good. And it's true because sometimes things happen. And having a degree can be a reason why, you still are able to keep a job after maybe a downturn in the aviation industry. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this. I hope that this helps you, and I hope that this helps other people out there, because I believe this information is something that a lot of people find themselves in, 17, 18-year-olds trying to figure out, should I go for flight training right away or should I wait? If you have found value in this one, don't forget to drop a like on the video, and I'll see you in a future one.